Oh, yeah.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Hello.
Very good. How is
afternoon? Super. Be better when the day is finished.
Yeah, it's a good day. I forgot it was we're off tomorrow.
Yay! On Monday.
You could come in tomorrow, John.
I'm fine. I'm gonna try and have a lie in, but the dog will still wake me up at 5 in the morning. So just do the normal wait for a few minutes, just let everyone join. Michael, are you all right putting the slide deck up? Yeah, thank you.
You see that?
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, we'll start at 32 minutes past then, just give people a chance to join. I think there's about 30 people on yesterday, wasn't there? So hopefully we'll get a similar number today. Yeah, so we'll make a start then. It's been recorded, this, isn't it, Michael? So if people want to...
Yes, it is being recorded. We'll share this later on for those who cannot make it.
Yeah, cool. So we try to put sort of relevant information by different participants in here. So I think if I sort of run through the slides, if anyone's got any questions, just put your hand up and we'll address them straight away. And then people sort of digest what we've said, and then if anybody wants to set up bilateral meeting next week with us, just drop us a mail and we'll set something up. I think in terms of the plan, data loading activity is not going to start until the 28th of April. So we've got a week or two, just for people to consider what's required and raise any questions. So we've gone to the next slide. Yeah. So in terms of what are we doing? Well, I think the first thing is, the good news is this is the last data load we'll all have to do before the end of SIT. So that's definitely a positive, I think, from our point of view, and I'm sure your point of view as well. Yeah. Thanks for the confirmation of that. So the I suppose, why are we doing it? Well, the last phase of testing in SIT A, it's going to cover regression, obviously. But before we sort of get into regression, we've got to close off the final settlement test. So I think there's a few COS tests that need doing. And as part of regression, we're also going to be rerunning the settling normally test case. And we're going to follow a very similar approach to the approach for settlements that we did in SIT B. So this time around, we're going to be assigning, as we did last time, 50 MPANs to each cohort. So that'll be each supplier in each cohort will get 50 MPANs, and obviously those MPANs will then be split with a small number for unmetered if it's relevant for that cohort. Some will be going into smart, some will be going into advanced. So pro rata, I think the unmetered guys will be getting a small number of MPANs. I think they'll only get around 3 MPANs per cohort. So PDA will probably get about 6 MPANs. Tim Hooking will get about 3, and the UMZOs, between them will have relatively small numbers, sort of 3, 4, 5 MPANs each to do settlements with. What we are doing, though, is we're also providing basically the same number of MPANs that we loaded recently into SIT B for NFR. So we're using exactly the same MPAN calls with the same attributes, just that we're loading into SIT A. Now, obviously, you know, if a cohort says, well, we've definitely got to load the 50 MPANs because we need all 50 for settlement testing. We've then got a relatively small number of regression tests we do. Well, clearly, you know, if that's all you're intending to do, you don't need to load 2,000 MPANs, which would be the total number of MPANs that we're going to provide through to people. But we are providing MPANs. We are going to provide the full set of MPANs, so each cohort will have around 2K. I suppose there's a question then around for each cohort really is, do you really want to load that many? And as we come on to see who has to load what, you know, that become a bit clearer as a reason. But I suppose the rationale for doing that is that SIT A can be used as a sandbox for SIT participants post regression testing. So we've got that period of time once regression ends to I think the SIT A environment's closed down in October time. That's correct, isn't it, Michael? It's around
correct. It's October the 24th.
24th, yeah. So effectively, you know, for that period of time, which is a reasonable amount of time, you know, people could use it for doing some of their own regression testing or some of their own, you know, sort of consequential change testing. But it is going to be there as a sandbox in effect. So we've provided lots of MPANs if people want to make use of them. If people don't, you know, if people intend to sort of shut down their testing as soon as regression ends, then clearly, you know, there probably isn't a massive benefit in you loading all 2,000 MPANs. But you know, I think that's a decision that, you know, the cohorts are going to have to sort of take between them. It might be easier if it's an automated process just to load all 2,000, or it might be easier to load less. But irrespective of that, you know, everybody should get around 2,000 MPANs. So unless there's any questions on that, if we just move on to the next slide. Cool. So the plan's very similar to the one that we followed previously. We'll be loading the data into MPRS, CSS, and DSP systems first. So to assist that, what we'll have is the BUUK and the SOUT MPAS is connected via their CSS adapters into CSS, so that when we load data into CSS, it will automatically use the business process to populate registrations, for example, into MPRS, and likewise when we load data into MPRS, that will automatically then populate data back into CSS and the DSP systems. So that's the approach that we took for data loading in before cycle 3, which worked really well. We didn't obviously do that for SIT B because there wasn't a CSS there, but we're just going to repeat that that activity. Normally what we say is we want to load all the MPANs and make sure they've all loaded and none have fallen out for various reasons before we give the data to other people. I think what we're aiming to do here is you know, we've got a 3-week period. Hopefully, you know, we should be able to load all of the data into MPRS and CSS within a week. And I sort of say that with you know, a sort of a view that you know, we've not done it that quickly ever before, so you know, I suppose that's the reality. But I suppose we are using exactly the same MPANs with the same attributes, you know, that we loaded into SIT B. So any issues that we encountered and we had to fix, you know, when we're doing that data load, hopefully that means that, you know, we shouldn't really be encountering anything when we're loading the same MPANs into SIT A. So in the plan that we've communicated out previously, we had ourselves providing data through to everybody else so they could load in the week beginning 12th of May. The issue with that is that we absolutely must complete data loading by Friday the 16th of May, because you know there's quite a strict plan, if you like, that we have to follow thereafter, you know, just to make sure that we can do all of the settlement testing and then all of the regression testing quite a narrow window. So it is quite a critical path activity, this, when you look at the overarching program plan. So I think what we're minded to do here is try and get the data out to people on the 5th of May. I think we'll have either completed CSS and MPRS data loading by that time, or we'll have got so we'll have got so far through it that we'll have good confidence that the MPANs are in a good state. So what we're going to aim to do is sort of deliver the data so that people can start a week earlier, and what that will allow then is obviously people 2 weeks, everybody else then, which primarily suppliers, 2 weeks then to get the data loaded. But as I say, we've got a real drop dead date, and I realise that some of that is on you guys obviously loading data, and obviously there's a big responsibility on ourselves to make sure the data's of the right quality, because if it's not the right quality, it's gonna delay you. So we accept that obviously that's only achievable if we deliver data to the right quality to you guys in the first place. So that's sort of the plan, if you like. So if people can sort of put that 5th of May in their diaries, if you like, as the target date for when we're going to ask people to start loading data. Now, the next few slides that I'll walk through describe who needs to load data and when. Kay, would you like to come in?
It was just a quick one. The 5th is the bank holiday Monday, so I'm assuming that the data will be available, but we can pick it up on the Tuesday.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So our guys in India who probably don't have a bank holiday, I'll check that. They'll be able to make that data available, and you guys can start on the 6th. Then. Yeah. Good catch there. Okay. It's bank holiday season, isn't it? I didn't catch that one. And then if we go on to the next slide, Michael. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk about sort of how many MPANs and what types are we creating. So as I said before, we're going to create 50 MPANs that will have to be used for settlement testing. So they're the sort of MPANs that if people remember the settling normally test case, there was a range of different MPANs with different attributes, the trad meters, smart meters, economy 7s, all that type, reactive power meters, all that type of stuff. So we've created these 50 MPANs. And Michael, have we sent out the comms today yet for the sample, for the actual data that we're going to be loading on, because we place it onto the SFTP, but have we sent the comms out yet for people?
Yes, it's been sent out. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we sent the comms out and for that. So we've made all of the MPANs available. So if people log into their SFTPs today, they'll be able to retrieve all of the MPANs that we've assigned to you. But within the CSV file that will have all of your MPANs in, there's a column in there called allocated test case with a reference, and then I think we've provided a separate spreadsheet that say this particular reference it relates to MPANs of these particular attributes. So the settlement MPANs that we're going to be using are denoted by the reference for the test case starts with an S. And so what you should find within each of your data sets, if you're a supplier, you'll have 50 MPANs in there, and they're the MPANs that we're going to be using for settlements. And then obviously if you're a metering service or a data service, you'll have maybe around sort of 30 odd MPANs, which will be a subset of those, depending on whether the MPANs are advanced or smart. And then the remaining balance of the 2K is the MPANs that we're assigning that can then be used in a general sense for any of the regression testing that's going to be required and subsequent sandbox testing. So again, all of those MPANs will have a specific code associated to them. Now we've provided another spreadsheet that say if it's an MPAN code, A001, this means that it's a single rates, advanced meter or whatever. So I think if you are going to sort of determine, do I want to load all 2K or do I want to load a subset? Obviously, you just need to reference again what type of testing do I need to do, what MPANs are what attributes, and then use the CSV we've provided to identify the correct MPANs with those attributes. if we then go on to the next slide. Yeah, so that all right. So this is just like an overview of the
Yeah.
the types of MPANs that we provided, so you can see. Yes, yeah. When we send this deck out, Michael, if we just remove those EOND ones because they're not relevant, but the ones
Okay.
the ones that are S underscore, they're the settlement ones, and then we've got the other MPAN types above that. But it just gives you an idea around the what's the meter group? Is it smart trad? Is it import export? Is it what's the connection type? So on and so forth. And then if we go on to the next slide.
I think that's the last one. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit weird, Michael, because I've
Good.
done some extra slides where it talks about who was loading what data. It's a bit bizarre.
It hasn't come on.
Oh, okay. Well, let me share my screen then.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how that's happened because I thought we were supposed to be using the same file on the SharePoint, weren't we? It must be a weird SharePoint thing that's happened. So, okay, so we've gone to that. Okay, there we go. So we've got 4 more slides. Can people see that? Yeah. Can you see that, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to walk through now who's going to be doing who needs to do what. So I'll start off with suppliers. So suppliers, they will need to load the data in the maintenance window, and they're going to be loading the data in a legacy state, so in a pre-migrated state. So in terms of this data load, there won't be any requirement to load IFs because all the MPANs are going to start off as pre-migrated legacy MPANs. So it'll be following exactly the same data loading approach that you did when you loaded the migration MPANs that we did in. I think we loaded the migration MPANs at the start of cycle 2. So we'll be finding a CSV file. It will have all of the 2000 MPANs in there, and the supplier, must load all of the settlement MPANs. And then I suppose there's some flexibility if they choose to, they can either load all 2K that we've given or a subset of those. But I think that if you're not going to load the 2K, obviously it will require quite a bit of thought around making sure that if you loaded the the ones that you do need, so that you don't sort of run out or have MPANs of the wrong type when you come to execute the tests. From a metering service point of view, because all the MPANs are going to start off in a legacy state, you guys as metering services won't have been appointed yet, so you don't need to load any data. Your service will receive the data as a result of the execution of the migration business processes, which we're going to be doing, as part of test execution. So you won't need to load any of the MPAN data. You'll get an IF31, an IF33, 35, 36 that will appoint you. But what we will be doing is providing, if it's an advanced meter or if it's a trad meter, we'll be providing D268s, D150-149s. So I think it's probably, you will have those files from us. And I suppose the thing you'll do then is when you're appointed via the IFs, you can then take the meter technical details that we've created for you and load those into your systems. And effectively, a bit like you did in migration testing, you'd be effectively stubbing as if you'd received these messages from a meter operator as part of migration. And then obviously we'd expect you, because we're following the migration business process, to then send the MTDs out to the relevant people, i.e. supplier LDSO data service. From an ADS SES point of view, again, there's going to be no requirement for you to load any data in the migration window. And again, you'll be reliant on when the supplier initiates the migration, business process, you'll be getting the the IFs through to appoint you, and with the expectation being that you'll get the MTDs then from the metering service, just as per the the migration business process. Go on to the next slide. So from an LDSO point of view, I'm not touching on regs here because obviously I've touched on the work we're going to be doing with St Clements and DCC previously, but from an LDSO point of view, we'll be expecting you guys to load all of the unmetered MPANs that we send across via CSV, and to load the generic inventories, that the same inventories that we loaded in SIP-B, and so basically get the UMZO system prepped so that when a supplier initiates a migration for a given MPAN, it'll follow the business process. It'll appoint you as the UMZO in a MHHS capacity, and then the expectation being then that you'll immediately, as part of that business process, generate a D0388 and send that through to the UMSDS. From a UMSDS point of view, again, like the other data services, you'll start off with an empty system, if you like, with no appointments. You'll be appointed as part of the migration process, and then obviously you'll get the as part of that you'll get the D0388, and then that will allow you to start executing further tests. And I suppose from an LDSO point of view, if data population, that would just follow the processes that you've undertaken previously. We'll be providing the CSV through total 15,000 MPANs, split roughly equally between BE UK and SSCN. If we then go on, unless there's any questions on that, we go on to the hi Chris.
Yeah, cheers, John. Just checking with regards to us being a metering service, we don't have to do anything with IFs. They will be just part of the process, but we will be provided with MTD flows beforehand, and they will be in flow format, I assume.
Yeah,
not CSV.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So what we're doing, we'll be generating the D268s, 150, 149s. So it'll just look like a normal DTS flow. Your header and a footer and everything, and then it'll have the header. It'll have you as the metering service as the recipient. It'll have the previous MOP as the sender, if you like.
Yeah.
So if you guys, what would be really good, obviously, because we've sent the data out in sort of good time, is if people can sort of have a check of that, say, do these flows look as expected? Stuart was on the call yesterday as well, and Stuart was sort of saying, can we test loads, a small sample of these, and said that sounds like a good idea as well, because obviously with us not having a metering application, it's hard for us to obviously make sure that the messages we're creating are right. But effectively, all we've really done here, because we're using exactly the same MPANs that we loaded into SIP-B, all we're really doing is basically it should be exactly the same MPANs with the same data. It's just that we're changing, obviously, things like the test flags going, will be TR03 instead of TR04, just so it's suitable for SIP-A. So that should be the difference. So I know we had quite a few issues, obviously, loading the data for SIP-B, but obviously those were fixed. So hopefully, this load is using all of the fixes that went in, so it should be of the shouldn't have issues. But obviously it'd be good for people just to validate that in the few weeks that we've got before we need to do this.
Yeah, of course. Right, will do. Cheers. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And if we go on to the next slide then, so EES, like I have put this as a bit of a TBC because it'd be good. I want to have a chat with Anna and Simon from St Clements, and then Chris from CNC, just about the best way to populate EES, because EES, obviously all of these MPANs are going to be in a legacy state, and we want all 15k populating. One technique that we did do previously is, St Clements obtained the delta updates that would normally get sent to EES and provided those across to CNC, and CNC then loaded those. So that's probably going to be the best approach here, is, because we're replicating the business interfaces then, rather than, CNC having to sort of build some kind of script that picks up the data out of our CSV file. So I'll put that as a TBC, and it's something I'll look to set up a meeting with St. Clements and CNC and ourselves next week to discuss. I'm not sure if Anna or Chris are on this call. No, they're not. So that's
No.
that. Yeah, so that's a TBC, but I don't see that being a particular issue. In terms of then Helix and Dip, well, because we're effectively replicating what the world's going to look like on day one post M10, before we migrate any MPANs, both of those systems are going to start off in effects empty. They won't have any MPANs in, because there isn't any MPANs that are MHHS. So that's just sort of reaffirming that position we've had previously, is that effectively we want those systems to be cleared down of any old test data, and they'll start off empty, and then they'll get populated in the same manner that metering services and data services will, as the IFs get sent by suppliers, they'll start to populate the MPANs in those systems. And then finally MPRS and DCC. So we've got a sort of plan and a run book with those organisations. So they're the only two parties really that are going to remain connected to one another for the data load. Everybody else is going to be loading the data individually. Nobody will have access to the DIP for the period of the maintenance window. But MPRS and DCC are two organisations who are going to remain connected. And the data population activity is going to be done. It's going to be sequenced to use those existing business interfaces. Grant, would you like to come in?
Yeah, hi John. Have you got a date for that clearing down of today, the MPANs and the DIP?
Yeah, so the testing ends on the Friday, which will be the 26th of April. So it'd be any time from week commencing 28th of April, Grant, is when the maintenance window starts. So it can be done at any point in the 3 weeks that we've got between, starting 28th of April.
Great, thanks. Yeah,
so that is a key thing. Like what we are saying is, I don't know if I forgot this covered on the last slide actually. Yeah. Actually, I even wrote a slide about it. I forgot about that. So in terms of what do people need to do with old data? So I think the advice we're giving is that for Helix and DIP, we do want all the old data to be removed. So any previous MPAN data, remove it and start off with completely empty systems. Now, we definitely need to do that from a Helix point of view, because for the settlements testing to work, we can't have more than 400 MPANs in the system, else the accuracy reporting and everything else doesn't work. So absolutely essential for Helix to start off with 0 MPANs. DIP, we just want to replicate that sort of day one condition. So the request is to remove all previous MPANs. We're going to ask the data service remove all their previous MPANs, because the data services processes, if it does have old MPANs in, might start, trying to create estimates and generating, estimated IF21s and all sorts of stuff. So from a DS point of view, we're saying, please clear down your test system in SIT-A completely, so you're going to start afresh. DCC, DCC have a limit on the total number of MPANs that they can have within their environment. So we're asking DCC to delete or remove all of their previous test MPANs that we've used, just because that makes way for this new batch of 15k that we're loading. And then in terms of everybody else, I think if people want to clear the systems down, they can and start fresh and reload the new data we've given them. Some people, that's not going to be practical to do, so it's not practical for EES to do that, or LDSOs, any of the LDSO services. And same, suppliers and metering services again, because we haven't got any automated processes that are going to run off MPANs being in there. People can choose to clear down their systems or not. But what I will say that's really important, obviously, is that any old MPANs that remain in your systems, will no longer be valid MPANs because they'll be misaligned then to MPANs in other central services, particularly obviously DIP Helix and DCC. So if people for whatever reason don't want to clear the systems down, and I think definitely LDSOs won't want to do that because they've always had the full 30 million set in there. Just be mindful. We're not issuing any particular guidance, but those any old MPANs that aren't within the new set that we've given you, you can't use them for testing. Nigel would like to come in.
Sorry, John. Just a quick one. You're saying we can clear systems down. The only concern I have about that is obviously if IPA or anybody later on said we need some more evidence out of your old SIT-A testing. Do we know if that's a possibility? Because if it is the case, obviously clearing down, we'll need to take a backup before we do that. So it's just
I think we definitely have to. I think so we're offering maybe consistent advice to everyone, Nigel. I think particularly data services, because I think data services will have to clear the systems down because otherwise they're going to start generating lots of spurious estimates and stuff like that. Is that I think the advice would be then to play it safe and take a backup. Then if you think there's a risk of having to provide more, the evidence that you provided may be incomplete.
Yeah, hopefully it's not, but you never know. It's just going forward. What we could get asked for. So I just thought I'd check. Yeah. But yeah, we'll go.
And I'd certainly say, if you're asking from the perspective of a supply and a metering service, I don't think there's really a need for you to clear the systems down because it'll be a completely different set of MPANs. And as far as I'm aware, you won't be generating any. You don't have any automated processes that would be running that would be sort of like generating spurious messages out then, for those MPANs.
Yeah, I was it was the thought process for us. It wasn't so much of an issue, but unfortunately, Sean, I think had to drop for an earlier meeting, so I didn't have his guidance. So I thought I'd just check before we. Yeah.
All right, I think it's a good thing. I think it'd be good for people to have a think about that. And obviously, if you think, well, actually, there's, we need a bit more, we need further discussion on this, or there's some nuances here that we haven't considered, it would be good for people to have a think about in feedback. If people think that's going to be problematic, and we can have a discussion about that. There's certainly, I think, from when I've talked to St Clements, for example, they're obviously going to keep all the MPANs in MPRS because it'd be a real job, doing anything with those because they've got all of the LDSO MPANs in there. But what they are going to do is going to stop any automated events from occurring. So if we've got lots of MPANs that we're not going to use anymore, but they're generating IF45, so missing appointments, they're going to cancel all those events. So I think I've got good confidence that St Clements are going to sort of ring fence, if you like, any MPANs that the legacy MPANs that are left over. But it'd be good for other people to have a think about that, feedback any sort of issues if there are any. And then Richard.
Can I just clarify I understood correctly? So as data service, this is prior to the settlement testing. You want us to clear data out, but then there wouldn't be a need between settlement and regression.
No, because yeah, that's right. Because what we'll effectively do is so if you think we'll get all the data loaded, so we're good to go, and then on day one of the new test phase, what we'll ask suppliers to do is send in IF31s for their 50 settlement MPANs. And then obviously that'll run through the process. IF31s get accepted, and then the MPANs will migrate. IF36s, MOPS will load in the meter technical details, which will then fire off those out to the data servicing suppliers. UMSOs will send out the D0388s. And so then, on the day of the effective from date of the migration, then we'll then have 400 MPANs in total in all of the central services. DIP will have been populated, Helix will have been populated. The data services will then start sending in their IF21s. We'll then undertake settling normally using those 400 MPANs. And then there's the other settlement cost tests or whatever that need doing. And then we've got the regression execution. So this is where I think it comes in, where a lot of those, potentially a lot of the MPANs that you'll have been using for settlements, you could probably use exactly the same MPANs for the regression execution. But you may then need to say, well, actually, I've got 50 MPANs of these different types. The settlement test cases require me to use X number of MPANs. You may then migrate a few more across after once settlements is completed. So this will all be choreographed and managed by the program. But once we've confirmed we've completed settlement testing, the limit, the hard limit we've got then on no more than 400 MPANs in SIT A disappears, and then people can start using, we'll start doing the regression test cycle. But the I suppose it's probably highly likely, isn't it, that a lot of the MPANs that you've been using for settlements you can then use for the majority of the settlement test, the regression test cases as well. Does that make sense, Richard?
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
And then obviously once we've done regression, people will then have 1,500 MPANs or more, that they could choose to use, in destructive ways or whatever, whatever we want to use them for from a sandbox point of view to do any further testing until SIT A closes down on the I think Michael said 24th of did we say 24th of October, Michael, or September?
Correct, 24th of
October. Yeah, okay. So that's good. So that was everything I sort of wanted to walk through today. I think the key thing for me was just sort of comes out to people, who needs to do what, when, and what type of MPANs people are going to be provided. And then I think obviously the other key message is all the MPANs that we're loading now are going to be in a legacy state, once we've completed loading. So there's no IFs, to be loaded by anybody. And the majority of participants won't be loading data in the maintenance window now, because they're going to get, their systems will be populated as a result of initiating the migrations, and so that their sort of activities will be occurring on day one of the test phase, if you like. On day one of the test phase starting, that's when the suppliers will be sending the IF31s into the regs. You guys will be getting the 33s, and it'll be from that point then that your systems will start to receive the MPAN data. Yes, that's sort of an overview from me. Has anybody got any questions, or if not, then we can close the meeting down there. No. Oh, and I should apologise as well. That was really bad timekeeping. I thought we had an hour. Sorry, I didn't realise it was half an hour. So apologies for keeping people on an extra 8 minutes. But thanks for everybody's time. And as I say, any queries or questions, let myself or Michael know. Okay, thanks everybody. That's bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.